better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know.
Hello, welcome to Dungeon Master of None. I'm Dungeon Master Matt. I'm here with a special guest today, Kyle Latino, professor of game design, artist, mapper, YouTuber, game designer, game mapper, the Map Crow himself. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Is that a soundboard? Heck yeah.
Yeah, we're like the morning zoo crew of Dungeon Master Radio here at Dungeon Master of None.
Love to see it. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, thank you for the wonderful introduction. That hits just about everything I got my hands into these days.
And you're here on the show to talk mapping, to talk monster design, and to talk about Monstrous, a new Kickstarter that you're launching with Cloud Curio that is out now, and the book planning to be out on pre-order in the new year, 2024.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the whole idea behind this book is it's really kind of gestated first as an idea on the YouTube channel with a series of videos called Building Better Monsters. And it was all about kind of just like re-examining some old standards to see if there wasn't something that we had forgotten from some of the original stories they showed up in, or some kind of way to add more flavor than just different combat abilities. So that turned into a collaboration with me and Kenny Webb and Amber and Sally, and we're
friend of the show.
Yes, right. And so we're putting this book together. It's going to be full of illustrations by me, a lot of which you might have already seen on the channel if you are familiar with it. But I do traditional painting and graphite drawing and all that good stuff. But what we have done is we have made almost like a reverse monster manual. It's everything except for the stats and combat abilities. We assume whatever game you have has all those stats and abilities in it already, and you already know what they are. But what it doesn't have is any way to like work the monster into your campaign setting and help you think about the NPCs and how they react to it, what the goals of this thing are, and how to bring out its the different flavor that it has, the different kind of story that it's trying to tell. So that's what the book is about.
I love your monster design YouTube series, and link in the show notes for that. I'll have some more questions about that for you in a second. But when I looked at the preview for the Monstrous Kickstarter, to me, it felt like, because we have just talked on the show about Flea Mortals by MCDM.
Oh, I love that book.
The opposite of this, the yin to the yang. If Flea Mortals has a lot of stuff that makes your monsters more interesting in a combat encounter, this aims to have a lot of stuff to make your monsters more interesting in a situation, an adventure, a campaign.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of really, really juicy lore in Flea Mortals, and there's like lots of like in-character flavor text, like, you know, there's the chronicler of the Chain of Acheron that's writing little comments about things and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm an enormous admirer of Matt Colville and James Intercasso, who I've had the great pleasure of working before on some Zweihander projects. But also, yeah, I mean, the rest of the design team and the art team on that book is incredible, but they are really focused on getting you action-oriented monsters that are frankly better and more fun to use than what is in the, you know, the dungeon, or not the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual for 5th edition. And we have a system agnostic approach that broadens this up. So we don't really care what system you're using. And we are helping you figure out everything that MCDM hasn't actually supplied for you.
Right. Well, I was looking at this, I was like, oh, you could use this with 5th edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, old school essentials, Labyrinth Lord, Pathfinder, whatever you want to use, right? It's just a fantasy role-playing game supplement.
And we even have like some tips on how to, and examples for how to put it into like a sci-fi game. So even though we're using a lot of imagery and illustrations from fantasy, it's like this is a way to think through how to make thematic monsters for anything. And because we're not referencing the system, we don't end up tripping over our feet in terms of adapting it to a different genre or theme.
So the one thing that really struck me looking at the preview of this Kickstarter and looking at your designing the monster book, and why I really wanted to talk to you about this, is it seems like you most heavily draw your information or inspiration for monsters from being just kind of really fucking weird with it, with the monsters, right? Like, and this is something we've talked about on this podcast. What I really love about fantasy, right? An evil ancient lich is not just a powerful spellcaster that acts the same as like a politician in the 20th century. No, it's a bizarre force whose goals are inscrutable and strange and arcane, and I love this. Yet the angel in your preview was also another thing. It's a collection of floating masks, and it demands some kind of praise and worship from players if they encounter it. It's weird.
Yeah, that was kind of a big push, is that there's a lot of kind of like flavorless tradition that has become bland over time. And our opinion as a team is that monsters, it's difficult to imagine, but there was once upon a time when there were no role-playing games. Yeah. Certainly not in the forms that we have them. And monsters were metaphors before they were game pieces. Right? So each of these monsters was put into a story to convey some kind of, warning or concern or a piece of beauty, or like they are poetic components in a narrative first. And we kind of lose all that by kind of steamrolling them into stat blocks and assuming that they're only interesting and important if they're in combat with player characters. So we're trying to go back to. I actually, once upon a time, I was a would-be biblical scholar. So I love to. I always go back to the Bible for imagery, because there's a bunch of weird stuff in that book that it gets forgotten because it doesn't conveniently fit onto the Thomas Kincaid Hallmark cards.
As a biblical scholar, would you say that the Bible is the greatest splat book of all?
Well, I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Okay, sorry. The Apocrypha is a splat book. It's a core manual,
right? Like, yeah. I think it certainly offers that. But I oftentimes I always try to respect the source material, just because my relationship with that book has changed drastically since I was really drinking the Kool-Aid. Doesn't mean that other people still don't find that like resonant and important and meaningful in some ways. So I want to make sure that I'm not like I'm not kind of strip mining, that I am sustainably taking imagery out of this thing that was once very important to me.
Yeah. And so the format, and I was curious as I was reading through this book, like, oh, well, what is this going to be? What is actually useful and actionable here for me as a dungeon master? And each of the monster types, right, angels, kobolds, liches, dragons, right, are kind of presented as a fill in the blank almost worksheet for what you to do with not exactly a table, but basically a table in paragraph form of some examples of what you could fill in those blanks with. So let me just look at the lich example. A lich has an aspiration. The lich's entire will bends towards blank, a goal that will take countless mortal lifetimes to achieve. And then you've got some examples for what you could fill that in, and then a fully worked example of the creature on the following pages.
Yes, so Monstrous is structured so that we have 10 of these blank cores for several different kinds of monster types. And then each of those blank core worksheets actually comes with 3 of what we're calling forms that'll be filled out versions of those that have a unique illustration and that we're putting our own spin on classic monsters and also trying to come up with something that nobody would have thought of except for us as well.
No, that it's super cool. I mean, it's so tough. There is so much out there for game masters and dungeon masters in terms of pre-made adventures and world guides and stuff like that. But I do struggle for something that's like, well, what's going to help me tell the story that I've already got going and are, juggling, keeping those plates spinning. And this, it seems like that was maybe the goal here, is to help people like me, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically it's a prep guide, right? Like that's the one thing we don't say is like it's a system agnostic GM prep tool, because that's the driest
too boring
sounding thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I like to think of this as if the Monster Manual and Sly Flourish's Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master like had a kid, right? Like it's like all of the wonderful process of what Mike Shea has done in that wonderful book. But then we also have like all the great illustrations and kind of like separated categories of monsters that kind of help you think through that specifically, instead of the broad strokes of how to prep for a session. This is how to prep for this kind of monster to tell this kind of story.
Right. I can see the effort in some of these descriptions, in that a lot of them will be useful for structuring a single encounter with, okay, here's a weird angel and this is what it's going to do, and then it's going to go away. Or a lot of these seem like, okay, this is how you're going to build out a villain or an antagonist or a possible ally that's going to be here for a long time, and you're going to be able to hang a bunch of campaign threads, story threads, situation threads on this creature.
Yeah, like as you complete this worksheet, oftentimes you end up with a pretty clear idea of what could be a one-shot or a small campaign or a lieutenant that is like in the army of the big campaign bosses ranks, like it really suggests stories, and oftentimes like there's a progression of events of how things can get worse over time if something isn't stopped, and usually you're generating 1 or 2 NPCs that are either the target or the ally of this monstrous creature.
Right. If you've got the Lich has kind of like a familiar Renfield like assistant. And then a lot of them, like you said, have these timers that are, we always encourage our dungeon masters to answer the question, well, what would happen if the heroes never existed, if the players or the characters did nothing, right? And then there you've kind of got the situation, and then let your players interfere or assist whatever's rolling there.
Yeah, and like the angels are such a good example. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to put it in this book, is because, you read through the Dungeon Master's Guide and you see like planetar angels in there. And you're like, when is this going to come up? Like, what circumstances would this happen? Are they just going to show up and be like cops? Like, what's the deal? It's just reminding people to like return stolen goods or something. Like, I don't know why this would happen. And what we're saying no is like, if an angel is involved in a story, this story is about judgment or redemption, right? And there is a prophet that is aware of the presence of this angel, and there is something that you and your other weirdos can do to avert this disaster, and it is flavored specifically through the kind of judgmental purview of what this angel is in charge of kind of judging about. And just by filling out like a couple of blanks, you end up with a really good structure for what could be like, 3 weeks, especially it's just like if you have to go across a hex map into a dungeon to get this, like, this sacred reliquary and bring it back to the cathedral before the judgment is passed, like that right there that's some good stuff right there. You could get months of fun out of that story.
The other thing I liked in this book that I think is really, really good game design is that lots of games give you a template or a form for building an adventure or creating a dungeon, and then kind of skip the part where you see it in practice. Basically you're using the templates every single time with every monster to be like, and this is what it would look like if you did this, and then maybe sat and thought about filling in these blanks for 5 minutes. This is what you could come up with. And by the way, of course, you could just steal this if you're even lazier, which many of us are.
And because we're not making a bunch of charts and not making a bunch of combat abilities, our examples, these forms, you read them in naturalistic language, and it's just like a fun little bit of fluff to go through. But it really kind of gives you a holistic picture of something that can go in your campaign if you want. Although I would be happiest if everybody just uses the blank forms. Like, this is here to get your imagination going. Now you go nuts with it. You be creative with it. That's my greatest hope for this book.
Speaking of the weird, I have to just read one more example, which is the liches, as part of their fill in the blanks, also have legendary spells because they're masters of some arcane form of magic that no one else is. Just reading from the preview here, one creature touched by the lich is cast into a pocket dimension of their own personal paradise. The creature must then choose be temporarily imprisoned in this paradise and bring back a permanent souvenir, or return instantly to harsh reality and feel the abject pain of paradise lost. Now, naturalistic language, there's no spell save or anything like that, but you're instantly, I'm like, well, if I'm using 5th edition, this is obviously the banishment spell. You can think of a million other spells for any other version of D&D, but it's way more memorable than a player getting banished, which just sucks. Right? It's, should I return with a souvenir and miss the rest of this fight, or come back and probably take some psychic damage?
Yeah, we don't give you any number of combat rounds that this is gone for. That's up to you. There could easily be some kind of wisdom save that you have to make to avoid this kind of thing. We'll have some guidance in the book to help you interpret some of these things. So we have kind of like these hidden technical terms. So when we say common folk, we're probably talking about NPCs, like people who aren't heroes. And if we're talking about mortals, we are talking about everyone. We're talking about PCs and NPCs and all that good stuff, right? So, and if ever, we're going to have some guidance that says, if ever a power seems to supersede the autonomy of a character, there probably needs to be some way for them to see it coming and prevent it from happening. There needs to be a chance, at least, right? So we are doing some work to try to help you do that. But maybe this is just a 1-round thing, and missing 1 round in a big boss battle could be a big deal.
Yeah. What else? Is there anything else you want to touch on about Monstrous that you think is neat or cool, or share with our audience of almost exclusively game and dungeon masters? I think, the big push for this is it's designed to get your creative engine going and fill your mind with ideas. I don't care if halfway through as you're filling out a thing, you have a completely different idea, or you mix and match several questions from, it's like, as long as it's generating good stuff. That's what I care about. And but we are also trying to give this a lot of treatment in terms of a really stylish layout, and we're filling it with art. There's going to be there's going to be like over 40 pieces of traditional illustrated art from me. So this is almost more of an art book than it is a game mastering tool, but there's a lot of practicality to it as well. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, head on over to bit.ly/monstrouskick and check the project out. Yeah, link in the show notes. I guess the next question about Monstrous I have is, our last episode was about some really famous Kickstarters in the TTRPG space that have failed spectacularly, right? And people have walked away with the money, or other things have happened and they've not delivered or something like that. I'm just curious, from the other side, what is it like setting up and running a Kickstarter? Does it like create a huge pit of anxiety in your stomach running this thing? How's it going?
It was. I'll be honest. I thought that all of my work was going to, as far as like hyping up the Kickstarter, would be done before the Kickstarter. We'd hit the launch button, and then I could just sit back. It has taken so much more work and planning and course correcting as we have gone than I ever expected, and it's very anxiety provoking. But it's also like, it's bringing the team together. We're really excited and proud for it, and we are we're very interested in and very invested in getting this book out there, because so much work on it has already been done. But one of the things that we were very worried about, because a lot of these big Kickstarters that make a lot of money and then never fulfill end up going bankrupt because of international shipping weirdness and stuff like that, right?
Right. Losing money on your RPG project. Yeah.
And so what one of the things that we said is just like, I was really insistent on this and doggedly so, to the detriment of the project. But I said, like, let's not do international shipping for this. We can offer a pre-order for international customers, like a link to pre-order things later on. But let's not give ourselves that headache too. Not realizing that because of the YouTube channel, I have a more than average amount of international customers, international people who are wanted the book and were very vocal almost immediately, like, hey, what's going on? Why isn't the shipping internationally? It's like, well, we didn't want to go bankrupt. And so we hired a consultant who works at Kobold Press, doing their kind of like customer service stuff. So we've got that ironed out. But that was one of those things that, like, I thought I had made the right move on that, but I think it really kind of hobbled us to begin with,
Yeah. I was before the show, I was chatting with Sally, the editor on your project, and one of the things we said in our last episode was it seems like the common mistake of many of these TTRPG Kickstarters is they present an idea and they raise money and they're like, well, now I'll finally write this book or something like that. And you got to basically have most of the work done before you do the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter itself is so much labor.
Yeah, it's true. And there's various business concerns. Like if that just money is just hanging out in your business bank account and the fiscal year turns over, like you lose a bunch of that to Uncle Sam before you've even spent it on anything. So you have to spend it before you get taxed on it and all this. So there's like if you're looking at something that is in the tens of thousands of dollars, like, it is an extraordinarily complicated, interrelated network of decisions, all of which you can get wrong, even if you research them for a long time.
Yeah, I'm curious, just being on the inside, because I've thought about this for a long time, and hopefully this isn't too off base of a question, but it's like Kickstarter is like, it seems like it has allowed so many amazing projects that I have really loved. I've had a blast playing Shadow Dark, which would without a doubt wouldn't exist without Kickstarter with some of my younger players. And, I've really loved Flea Mortals, and going back years and years, there have been a ton of Kickstarter projects that I love, but it does seem like this double-edged sword. Like, this does seem, you have to give Kickstarter a cut. There's all these problems. Like, I doubt, this project, I don't know if it would get made without Kickstarter, but like, I don't know. What's your thoughts on the broader Kickstarter ecosystem that is grown up for board games and TTRPGs?
I think something that our team is doing really well with, because we have a lot of experience. We're not in our 20s doing this for the first time.
Right.
This is the first time we've done a Kickstarter of this size before, but this really isn't our first rodeo. But when I first launched, because I did a zine quest a couple of years ago called Old Roads, and it was a book, it was a zine of isometric maps. And that's what kind of started the YouTube channel, was just me kind of documenting what I was doing on that and going like, maybe people would want to watch the creative process. And what I didn't realize is, if you have a Kickstarter and it does even marginally well, you have started a small business, right? It's like there is so much time that it takes to make this stuff happen and fulfill orders and talk to customers and get the word out and figure out, all this stuff that has nothing to do with creating the thing that you love. So I think that's one of the things that gets obfuscated, and I don't think people really talk about it very much, is the fact that you are now an entrepreneur, whether you want to be or not, and your failure to recognize that transition has occurred is one of the worst things you can do after your Kickstarter funds.
Well, it sounds like hell, but it also sounds like the book is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah. I'm very excited for it. I backed it myself.
Thank you so much.
Well, now to really put you on a spot to test the mettle of this book. Okay, so I have in my campaign right now, I have written on the map a dragon.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot. And I know in my campaign right now that I have an evil dragon that is slumbering in a dungeon, waiting somewhere. I know that dragon may be killed or imprisoned, a good protector dragon that the players have encountered a tomb of and a temple of. But I know nothing else about this dragon. I'm thinking maybe it's influencing some of the factions, but I'm like, this'll be the 10th level into the campaign. My characters are 4th level right now. Kyle, can Monstrous save me? And because all I have written down is dragon at this point. Like, I'll get to it eventually, but sure. Yeah. What's your suggestions as the Monstrous oracle?
Well, we have actually, I think that's in our preview packet, is our dragon core worksheet. So the first thing that we ask you to do is think of what the dragon's vainglory is. What is the thing that it is deeply prideful of, and causes it to create a horde of, something or other, right? So, and then there is, we lead you into thinking about how it has, if you speak in front of the dragon and you do not pay deference to the dragon's vainglory, that it can ask you, it can draw truth out of you and get you to say more than you would.
This is some real smog shit right here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. Why look anywhere else for, but also, the dragon from, John Gardner's Grendel is a great example of this kind of dragon as well. Or, Wong Bongarok, or Theragavarug from the Fortress Unvanquishable, save for Saknoth, right? Like, those are also some very proud dragons. And then we kind of lead you in how to think about a ruinous breath weapon. We give you how we tell you to create its ageless scales. So there's nigh indestructible scales made out of something, but also that there is a weak point, just like Smaug, right? So that is why you would go in and spy on this thing ahead of time and try to lure it into a conversation, into revealing its weak points. Because if you just go in guns a-blazing, you should lose. It's a dragon, right? I think that's something that just by giving it a high AC and a high hit point without any other kind of wrinkle to it, it's going to be like every other fight you have ever had. And then we also lead you in creating what is called the slumbering cataclysm. So which is like what it will do if it is angered, like how it is going to take out its fury, not just on the players, but on the world, on the countryside. What will it do with its indestructible scales and ruinous breath? And if you dare denigrate its vainglory, right? That is the kind of stuff that we're asking you to think about.
That is so awesome. I don't have a motivation for this dragon, but hopefully I will get this book by the time my players are close enough in level that they can burgle this dragon. Yes. And I'll have an answer for its motivation in its vainglory.
So we sort of have we have a fairly adaptable but somewhat specific setting that kind of goes unspoken. There's sort of like a bunch of pre-assumptions that we have. And sort of like one of the unspoken pre-assumptions that we have about dragons, which I think fits really well with just about any time they show up, is that they are sort of like the quarterback that peaked in high school and then has a terrible long life and makes it everyone's problem, right? So dragons they remember this time where they were the unquestioned rulers of a languageless world, before the doddering and chattering humans and elves and all that kind of stuff. All creation conspired to worship them. And it's all been downhill from there. And so their vainglory, the thing that they hoard, is some kind of like the shattered pieces of what once belonged to them, or the thing that the shattered pieces of their once great empire were then smelted down and turned into by all these wretched human beings, right? So it's like where it kind of sets you up with not just like a motivation, but like an emotional like damage that you can screen all of the actions and activities of this dragon through. That's the kind of stuff that Monstrous does that the monster manual just ain't gonna do.
No, it's not. I saw this quote, Kyle, yesterday. It was from an interview with our greatest living wizard, Alan Moore. He said, "Fantasy has no restrictions whatsoever. It's a bit lame to be constantly hitting the same note on the piano. Let's have fantastic visions that nobody has seen before and lay off people of restricted height for a change." Talking about every fantasy is just dwarves and halflings and humans. I got the sense. I was reminded of reading that yesterday when I was reading through Monstrous. It's like, yeah, let's get really weird with it. And so, I mean, is that sort of your design philosophy when you started this Building Better Monsters YouTube series and talking about this? Like, where did this motivation for a different approach for monster design kind of come from?
Well, I'll tell you the real story. And I don't. So the real story is early on, before I did the Building Better Monsters videos, I first made a video that was called The Problem with Goblins, right? So just kind of like unpacking some of the issues around colonialism and just like a lack of thoughtfulness around the imagery of goblins in pop culture. That video was doing really well, but it became kind of a lightning rod for a lot of really ugly comments. And so I delisted it. I got rid of it. And the truth is that, like, you know, not everybody who was griping at me had a point, but some of them did. And that is that, like, you know, going up to people and saying and slapping something out of their hand and say, "You can't use this, that's wrong," is kind of a weird thing to do. Like, you hear from a stranger that's just like, you're doing the wrong thing, and maybe you're a wrong person for associating with that sort of story or that sort of goblin. When it's just like, I don't know you, you know, like, I don't know that situation.
It's not very persuasive if you're not giving people an alternative
When was the last time anyone was persuaded by some random person on the internet shouting at them to do something different? Just because people do it all the time doesn't mean it's works, right? You know, when you change your mind about something, it's because people that you trust and already include in your life are giving you a compelling alternative way to go about it. So I decided it's like, okay. It's not that I disagree with the ideas in that video, but I don't agree with my delivery of it at all. And rather than using my platform to swat tools and images away from people and say, no, you can't do that, instead of trying to police what people can do at their own kitchen table with their own friends, I wanted to instead start offering new alternatives. Instead of saying like, don't do that, I want to say, hey, try this. Here's a new way to think about this. Here's a bit, or my favorite thing to do is like, here's this bit of Tolkien that nobody remembers that he said about orcs, or here's this bit of this old fantasy novel that no one seems to talk about anymore, right? Because it's too mythical, it's too big, it's too fantastical to fit into the stat blocks and in balanced 5e combat. So like, how do we grapple with those pieces that don't fit and those images that still have charge because they haven't been repeated as much? That's what I started building Better Monsters to do, and that's what Monstrous is all about.
I think you had the right idea here. I'm just thinking of my own personal experience as a dungeon master, right? I saw a lot of the critiques about monstrous races, goblins, for example, right? That they redo all these tropes, but I don't think I was really persuaded to actually put them back into my game in a different form until I read the Morkborg take on goblins.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Now I use Morkborg goblins because I have an alternative. So even someone like me who is persuaded by these types of arguments, it takes an alternative to really, let's say, move things forward. So I like the origin here.
Move things at all, right? It's not necessarily about like progress towards a specific direction. It's just like, I don't know, if you want to be more creative, you have to try something different, but everyone's swatting things out of people's hands instead of offering alternatives.
Yeah. Is there any of the monster redesigns or better monsters that you did in your series that are sort of a personal favorite of where you were able to find new inspiration or more fantastic inspiration?
Yeah, I think the owlbear is probably my favorite. That's definitely going into Monstrous.
No, come on. Owlbears are just bears with owl faces, because literally that's all they are in the monster manual, right? Oh, maybe there was a weird experiment. Doesn't matter. They act and behave like normal creatures. What's your more fantastic take? I'm dying to hear.
It was a once great king who was humbled by the gods and cursed to walk the earth in the form of a beast, and is unkillable to conventional weapons because he has to be a living object lessons to the rest of the mortals who might get uppity and think that they too can build a tower to heaven. That is the owlbear.
That is so good. It's the owlbear, not a owlbear.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I think I stole that whole replacing the indefinite with the definite article thing from James Holloway from Monster Man, the podcast over there. But he's just like, this would be way more interesting if it's not genericized. If there's only one, because like how many owlbears do you need to fight in a single campaign? And you're probably, if you fight owlbears in your one campaign and you play, you're probably not going to do that again in your very next campaign, right? Like you want more variety, so why not just let there be one?
Yeah, we really, you do not need an encounter or a dungeon where there is 2 owlbears in a nest in the first room, 4 owlbears in a nest in the second room, and then 3 owlbear cubs and 1 giant owlbear. And that's boring. The owlbear. So I love the fantastic interpretation of all these classic fantasy role-playing game monsters. I would say if you don't take this approach, the only approach that feels interesting to me as a dungeon master, like at the moment, is to go all the other way and take the Eberron approach, where every sentient monster is basically just kind of mostly human in its motivations and things, and you can also build an interesting world that way. Yeah, there's a kingdom of harpies and gorgons and Medusas and stuff. That's interesting in its own way, but the sort of middle ground between those two, of the great and fantastic to the like, okay, let's logically play this out. This is a sentient creature. It's built a civilization. The middle ground that most fantasy role-playing games, including most of Dungeons and Dragons, and to be honest, most of Pathfinder, hits just kind of, it feels blah to me right now.
Yeah, and you know, they don't really have the page count in a monster manual. Like they're trying to give you like 300 pages or 150 pages of monsters, right? They just don't have the space to unpack all of these and give you solutions for all this. But, you know, they could give you a process for thinking it through a little bit more. But yeah, I tend to agree. And I'm not really a huge fan in general of fantasy races as player characters in the first place. Mm-hmm. I think everybody is always going to play those characters basically as some version of human. That's always the departure point. And I think to really get the contrast and the flavor out of these different fantasy beings, I think that's way easier to do as an NPC encounter than it is to do at the table. But, you know, that is part of the play culture now, and far be it for me to second guess that. But I think there's a flattening of like, orcs are big angry men. You know, they're big angry people. Like elves are tall, beautiful people. Like, you know, hobbits are short. Like they're not really all that different. Like any band of goblins could just be a band of bandits, and it wouldn't be any different the way that they are commonly presented. And that I think is why everything seems boring to me. Yeah.
Okay, to transition topics, I have no useful segue here, but I'm dying to talk to you about your mapping. It's beautiful. It's cool. I watched a ton of your mapping videos before this podcast, and I love it. Kyle, what makes map good?
Well, if you're making a map for your Dungeons and Dragons game, or for someone else's, for an adventure or something like that, the thing that makes a good map is recognizing that it is a game board. It exists to show the decision space to the players or the GM. Like, where could we go, and how is picking one direction different than another direction? If you can do that, you have done a tremendous job already. And most fantasy maps, like I don't want to pick on Mike Schley, who did that enormous Forgotten Realms map that is for 5e. The man is an amazing artist. But the map that he was asked to draw was there's nothing on it. It's like, right. I could have come up with, there's some grass here and there's some forest here and there's, over here, there's some mountains over here. Like that offers nothing. That is not interesting. There's no game to play on that map.
Okay, Kyle, I try and on this show be like pretty open and honest about like my own prep and my own failings. So and we may have to cut this, Kyle, because who knows how badly it will translate to our audio only podcast. But right now, listeners, I'm ready to get skewered here. I'm showing Kyle the map of my current campaign world, and it's not great. I listened to Kyle's video about, okay, one of our basic points is if you give players a map and it shows mountains and forests and grasslands, What does that mean? So, I'm a delicate soul, Kyle. You know, if you can layer things in a criticism sandwich or something like that, but really lay into me. You know, what do I need to do to improve my mapping skills? Because I'm looking at my map, I'm seeing a sea, mountains, coast, hills, and some towns, and that's it.
So I want to say, it's like, you know, you asked me my opinion about mapping as somebody who does it for a living and is trying to like find an artistic voice in it. So yeah, far be it from me to second guess what works for you at your table in your process.
Second guess away, because you're absolutely. I mean, here's the real reason I'm showing you this is I gave this map to my players, and they. Like, one of them was slightly interested, and then most of them were not at all interested. Like, all of them have this PDF in their inbox, in their text message, but they are not interested. So to me, that tells me my map has failed.
So I could make some suggestions. So this looks like this was made with some kind of mapping aid. It's like some kind of
Incarnate,
yeah, and that's a really good one because it has really well drafted details and all that kind of stuff, and you can rearrange things. I think that's an amazing tool, and I love seeing tools like that coming online and people interacting with them. But you're not going to be able to do what I do, which is, you know, draw bespoke mountains. These mountains over here look different than these mountains over here, and specifically this way. Like, you can't have these mountains that are on your map and have them full of cobwebs. Like, that is not an option for you.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
You would have to find some cobwebs and layer it on top and all this kind
and
of
that's
stuff.
Too much work for me.
It's
right?
too much work. It wouldn't be worth your time.
If I had replaced these regular looking mountains on my maps, listeners picture regular looking mountains with mountains that had cobwebs, even badly drawn ones through there, I can feel it. My players would be interested in exploring cobweb mountains, right? Mountains with giant cobwebs. They're automatically interested. They want to go there, they want to avoid it, which means I could put a thing they want on the other side. Ooh.
Now you're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me with another one. This is good.
But I also want to say, like, when I'm doing maps for my own games, I don't draw them like you see me draw them on my channel. Like, I draw that if I'm trying to publish it and put that into other people's hands, or if I'm freelancing, right? Like, I don't do like these overly elaborate maps for my own game. I don't have time to do that. So one thing you can do though is if you said what is this big green mountain here? This is the
Finwall Mountains.
Finwall Mountain. Okay, so if you called them, you got to label it differently. Like, you got to call it something exciting. You know, if you just called them the Cobweb Mountains or the Gossamer Pass, right?
Yeah.
Like, then it's just like, wait a second. That doesn't sound like a metaphor. That doesn't sound like a normal place name. Are we to believe that these are spider-infested mountains? And you could say, yes, in fact, you know, these great, almost invisible webs are strewn across these mountain peaks, catching eagles and even small dragons within them. And they're bound, and you just see these bundled, twitching creatures kind of suspended almost in midair because you can't quite make out these like iridescent, invisible webs, right? That kind of stuff. What is the thing that you can name a thing that is going to get someone to ask a question about it? Like, what is going to invite in inspection and caution and interest and curiosity? Those are the place names that I would use.
Right. If I renamed Riddleport or added the sub name Riddleport, City of Daggers, or something like that, maybe the players would be interested instead of, what is Riddleport? It doesn't tell me anything about this.
Or something like, you know, City of Daggers, it's like, oh, I'm going to get shit. But like, what if you called it Riddleport, the kleptocracy, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, oh, it's okay. So it's run
by pirates. Yeah.
By pirates, right?
Yeah,
or
perfect.
if you call it like, you know, Riddleport, the city of idiots. It's just like, wait a second, what's going on here? So just even adding a little like epithet to something like that is already like, now you can kind of like get there. Okay, they're called Riddleport, but they're all idiots. Like, what does that mean? How did they get that reputation? And then just make that thing also just as bonkers. When they ask a question about Riddleport City of Idiots, make the answer interesting and bonkers, and talk about what kind of bizarre festival of fools they have going on the third Thursday of every week or every month,
Right. The Festival of Fools, of course, elects the leader of Riddleport, who is, sent into the maze after their term in office expires. The players
right?
will
Like
do
it starts pouring out. If you give things names that just like, why would anybody go there, much less live there? Then your players are asking interesting questions, and now they want to push on things. Now they want to find out about things.
Okay, well, thank you for roasting my map. It needed to be roasted because, again, my players were not super interested in it, and I need them interested in it because they have a wagon now, and they have a boat, and they have the ability to travel, and soon they're going to be able to fly and teleport. I need them going places that are farther away, and so this is a great idea. One of the broader things you say about maps, and I love this as a historian, is that we as dungeon masters often make the error of going too big, right? And too high up, right? And that often early modern or medieval Renaissance maps, whatever label you want to call the period before we, saw the world in a certain way, are more three-dimensional. They're from the perspective of a high hill, and you can see creatures and people and interesting things. I mean, immediately when I was hearing you talk about this, something about things like the Catalan Atlas or something like that. So what's your philosophy on this, with the sort of go back to a little more an earlier time of map making?
I think honestly, like, those older maps are cooler, and they're made for different reasons for why we have maps now. I think a really good example of this that's kind of hiding in plain sight is the map of Mordor in Lord of the Rings in the book. Okay. And one of the things that would drives a lot of people just kind of nuts is like, why do we have right angles?
Yeah.
on this map of Mordor, and the truth is that the way that I see it, and I have every reason to believe this, is because all the cartographers who get close enough to those mountains to get an accurate reckoning of where they actually begin and end are killed by orcs. So they're like, okay, this is close enough. Like, everything else is really, really detailed and accurate because they don't get killed by orcs every time they walk up to it to start drawing a map,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got to have weirdness on the map, and you've got to have, I think symbols work better than your traditional key. Right? Putting on your map a little key of like circle for small town, square for bigger town, star for biggest town. Like, that is so much less interesting than if you, label, City of Fools and draw a tiny jester there. Right.
You could probably just get away with some cool labels on a map and some lines for roads and a big circle for a lake. You could probably get by with that, and I think your players would have a more interesting time with that than they would with and a map should have a point of view. Like, another thing you could do just with this map right here, send them a new map, except everything is annotated by a character they've met before.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Like,
okay.
This is where I got into this kind of trouble. Here's where I found the good price on this. Oh, I think that here there's a monster in here that stole such and such, right? Like, like, make it an in-world artifact for them and show them a way to open up that possibility space and push on the boundaries of the world. That is what a map can do that a that almost immediately that nothing else you can bring to the table will do. Not minis, not DM screens, not a cool book you're going to get off of Kickstarter this week, right? Like none of that's going to do it quite like a map will do. It has immediate impact as long as it offers those juicy choices.
As Le Guin said, always start with a map. This is such good advice. I love the idea of the annotations. One of the things you talk about in your videos is that mapping is about providing players with choice and players with, I guess you could say, agency. So what is your approach? How do we map choice and agency at the broadest sense when we're doing stuff, or at a specific sense?
Yeah, I think it really is about those place names. I don't know that I have much more to say on that than I haven't already said. But the thing that I do want to say, though, is that maps are also a prompt for the GM, right?
Right.
So if I was running an urban campaign, and underneath the church district, I had a map of the city, and then I had a map of the sewers underneath, where there's a whole, and those had named locations and people living in it too. And I had this location called the Catacomb of Smiles. And right, and I don't know what's there. I still don't, because they never went there.
Right.
But I do feel like that is juicy enough that I could, if they decided to swing by the Catacomb of Smiles for no reason, I could get something going. Like maybe that's a talk about something that happens to the skeletons as you walk by, or something like that, or like the hissing nunnery. What does that mean? The nuns are snake people? Like, we don't know, right? Like
right.
that is, like it is there to remind you to come up with better ideas if that comes up, but you don't actually have to. If I'm looking, Yartar is one of the worst named cities in the Forgotten Realms. This tells me nothing about anything, right?
Yartar.
Like if we say well, I guess we're close to Yartar, maybe we can go there. You know what I would have to do? I'd have to look up what's in Yartar, and that's a waste of my time as a DM.
I'm in a Yartar state of mind,
But if they say like, oh, let's go by, Riddleport, the city of idiots, I don't need to look that up. I can make that up, and it'll be a memorable evening. So it's not just there to offer players choice. It is also there for me to have an improv. So they're not showing up to something I know nothing about.
Yeah. So last question about maps is, in your mapping videos, you emphasize the need for, or not the need, but the benefits of using hexes and using random encounter tables. And I feel like this has been something that's, we've talked about hex scrawls on the show before, but overall, encounter tables, key to maps, and hexes is something that's kind of been a little bit lost in some of the newer editions of fantasy role-playing games. And why are those like so useful for us as dungeon masters?
Well, first of all, like, you need to make sure that you're playing a game that doesn't trivialize resource management almost immediately.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a level 1 spell that just says like, you don't need to sleep, eat, or drink anymore, right? Like,
right.
which is sometimes what we run into, essentially. So that's what you got to do. The way that I have done hex maps in the past, and I don't think I elaborated on in that video, so I'll give you some cool behind the scenes info.
Ooh.
I use them not just for monsters in the biome, because I could probably make that up. I'll bet wolves can be just about anywhere if I really need an encounter. I use them for factions, right? So like I'll have my own GM map that will have a boundary of where a faction's sphere of influence is. And then I have a 2d6 encounter table that will have, it will have a probability curve of like, it's 7, 8, and 9. It's probably going to be a faction from the area. And when you get further off to the either side of that probability curve, it might be someone from a faction from a neighboring bordering area, right? And that way it seems like you can kind of foreshadow what they're going to be running into. And maybe they'll just see like an encounter could just be like seeing evidence that the blood cult made a sacrifice here. It doesn't have to be like a whole hung down, drug out fight. But I think that's a great way to make that setting come alive without having to plan out like story beats for every single thing that happens. It's just like is if you are thinking about what are the other people that are moving around this area, and how can I use an encounter sheet that isn't stocked with like, D4 elves, D6 goblin raiders or whatever. Right. It's just like it's based on proximity. It's something that's more broad and flexible that is going to tell you, it's like, maybe it's an animal that wandered in from a different biome. So it's not about like the animal you expect to see haunting you at the campfire. It is an animal that you never expected to see in this place. Why has this Yeti been driven down from the snow-capped mountains? That is a more interesting encounter, because it's like, what is this thing doing here? I mean, I know we just killed it, but like, what is happening? Is there something badder than Yetis that's like up in that there mountain right there? Like it begs story and inquisition and interrogative play, and that's what you really want from random encounters.
Absolutely. Great answer. I love that. If maps are how we're communicate, they're one of the most engaging ways we can communicate with our players, right? These tables, these hexes, probability tables are a way to introduce them to all the cool things we want. The cool story hook on that mountain, the faction that has its influence in this region. Very cool. Great answer. Anything else, Kyle, you want to talk about? Mapping, monster design, dungeon mastering, Monstrous, that we didn't touch on?
I think, I'll just say it. Like, never let anybody, especially me, make you feel bad about the game that you love playing with the people that you love, right? Like, there's so much hand-wringing and clout chasing that happens in online spaces that is, I think it's starting in a bad place to begin with. So it's just like, now what I would say is, like, if you really want to run I'm a System Matters guy as well, in addition to that. But also, it's just like, run the thing that you're happy with, run the thing that you're excited about with. And if there's a tool set that seems like it should exist for that, I'll bet there's somebody out there working on it. So asking and looking for, like, reading other games to kind of pilfer them for procedures and tool sets, rather than like planning to run, like a full campaign of Blades in the Dark is a great way to engage with the practice of being a GM without, constantly saying like, hey friends, do you want to play a brand new game you've never heard of and don't care about?
Great answer, Kyle. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas and insight and tell us about, hey, Monstrous, now on Kickstarter, link in the show notes. Check it out, see if it's for you. It's a super blast, super fun time talking to you about all this shit.
Oh, thank you so much. I really had a great time talking about this, and I've been in Monstrous land for so long. It's been a while since I had a chance to really talk about the nuts and bolts of map design, and now I really want to do an episode on random tables. Like I think there's some stuff to say about it.
Yeah, I've been blown away by the number of dungeon masters I've encountered that have never used a random table and have decided it's not for me. I'm like, but there's so much you can do with it. It's so important, at
even
least
just
in
as
my
a prep
experience.
Tool.
Yeah, as a
right?
prep
like,
tool.
Just avoid. It's like
this will make your life
those
easier.
Random tables ahead of time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, I love this conversation. I can't wait to see the finished book. And, I'm sure we'll be maybe back here next year when you're working on Mapstress, the mapping dungeon master aid. Sorry, I don't want to make you do that, but it's out there.
I really do. I like I said, after taking a big long break from maps to look at monsters, I am aching to do a big old map thingamajig. So yeah, that you might not be far off the mark there.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Kyle, and thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions about the show, feel free to drop us a line at dmofnone@gmail.com. And speaking of Kickstarters, if you join us on patreon.com/dungeonmasterofnone, you can hear our story of perhaps the most infamous failed Kickstarter of all time. It's not Monstrous. It's something completely different. It took us a whole hour to talk about. So join us for that epic grift. And thanks for listening, and keep rolling them dice.
I got a monster in my closet. Someone's under